Samardzija, who last year, mid-season, changed his mechanics. And if you watched Samardzija in the second half, he was a much better pitcher than he was in the first, and he ended the year on a really good note. How many of you picked him up in fantasy mid-season, and you know exactly what I'm talking about? He had a solid 2019, 1.11 whip. And this is his free agent walk year. So if the Yankees could make a trade for Samardzija, they're not locked into a long-term contract with a 35-year-old pitcher. To me, Samardzija makes the most sense. Now, on the same team, there's 34-year-old Johnny Cueto. Now, the problem with Cueto is health, and I don't know what we're getting with Cueto, whether he's a Giant, a Yankee, or whoever he plays for. Of course, he's optimistic, but tell me something. Tell me an athlete who doesn't say, hey, I feel great. I used to play a lot of sports on school teams. I was on my school baseball team, school basketball team, school football team. Even on days I didn't feel worth 2 nickels, I still said, oh, I feel great. You can't rely on an athlete's analysis of their own health. Are you kidding me? I'm sure every time a pitcher is approached by a manager on the mound late in the game and the manager says, how are you feeling? I'm sure the pitcher says, oh, I feel sucky. I don't feel good at all. Why don't you take me out, coach? I mean, come on. They don't do that. So Johnny Cueto, he says, I feel like my arm is a baby. It's so healthy and new. Maybe so. Show me the money. He's 34 years old. He has only made 13 starts in the last 2 seasons. But Cueto could be a huge gamble with tremendous payoff if he pitches well this spring. And I think that's what Cashman's got to do. He's got to wait it out. First of all, see what his in-house crowd does, and then see what out-of-towners do, and Cueto's one of those. Now, he's got a high salary, Cueto, almost $22 million this year. So might the Yankees want the Giants to take some of that money? Sure. But the Yankees have offensive firepower they can trade to the Giants. Now, another potential suitor, I don't like this one at all, but it's a potential suitor. How about Chris Archer, who has, look, I heard him being interviewed on the radio yesterday. His hat size has gone from a 7 5/8 to a 7 1/4. That's true. He said it. He's cut his dreads off. He is Chris Dreadless Archer. That's true. He now says he's gone from a 7 5/8 to a 7 1/4. But I'm not as concerned about his hat size as I am his slider. New pitching coach, new atmosphere, no longer, his slider is his out pitch, and last year got away from it. He had a horrible 2019, an ERA over 5, a whip over 1.4. So might the Yankees be interested in Chris Archer? I don't know. Might they keep their eye on him this spring? You better bet it. He's due only $9 million this year. Only $9 million. $11 million club option in 2021. So he could be, again, one of these short-term fixes that the Yankees so desperately need. And then there's one more pitcher. I think everybody talks about this guy going to the Yankees like every year, Robbie Ray. Yet he still remains planted firmly in the Cactus League in Arizona. He's Arizona's number 2 starter. He's 28 years old. So I don't know how interested Arizona is in trading him anyway. And I'm certain if they trade him, they're going to want quite the prize in return. But he's a pitcher out there that his name it just seems to keep being mentioned in trade talks, not just the Yankees, but other teams. And it's almost like that the Diamondbacks want to trade him, So there are 4 potential players if Cashman goes outside the organization. Robbie Ray for the D-backs, a lefty. Samardzija and Cueto, right-handers, and Archer, a right-hander for Pittsburgh. Just food for thought. So as much as I'm excited about Jarren Duran for the Red Sox, I read this morning, and I just sort of saved this for last, or one of the last things of the day. It's been a fast 50 minutes. When you're doing something you really enjoy, the old saying, time flies, it really does, doesn't it? I hope you guys are enjoying it. I really appreciate you guys sticking around the chat room, listening to the show this morning. I really appreciate you being with me on Monday and Tuesday. I would really like to see the podcast continue to grow with audience base. If you start out in the morning listening to Lenny, how about sticking around for my show and then listening to Kevin Hastings? Kevin puts in an enormous amount of time. Lenny gets up at, I don't know what time in the morning. I wonder sometimes if Lenny ever goes to bed because he's up so early preparing. These shows, they don't just happen, folks. It takes preparation. And I promise you, we prepare more time than we're on the air doing podcasts. We are. Because half the stuff we look at, we don't use. We just like to be prepared, and Kevin will be prepared. I try to prepare. I know Lenny prepares. I would encourage you to, when you start the podcast in the morning at 9 a.m., just continue it right up until lunch. Just keep it on. And we're going to give you information that's going to help you with your fantasy draft. Now, here's a player I don't think is going to help in fantasy. I don't think it's going to happen in reality. And I don't understand for the life of me why Milwaukee gave Freddie Peralta a 5-year extension. Are you joking? Freddie Peralta? A 5-year extension. I've just not seen... Okay, I know he's got a lot of potential. But I've seen him blow up so many times. Yes, he has a 97-mile-per-hour fastball. Yes, he does. He has a curve. He has a slider. But he had a 5 ERA almost last year. Now, I don't know. Maybe there's reason for that. But I look back at Severino. And maybe this is a bad comparison. Maybe there's reason for no comparison. But remember, Severino didn't pitch at all. 19 innings last year. Not going to pitch at all this year. And just before the 2019 season, the Yankees gave Severino a 5-year extension on his contract? So they've been paying him for the last 2 years for this 5-year extension. And he's pitched 12 innings. I mean, come on. And Peralta, giving him a 5-year extension, maybe 3, but they gave him 5. And he's competing with left-hander Eric Lauer to be the 5th starter. Okay, the other thing, if he was the number 1 guy or number 2 guy, maybe. Severino's the number 2 guy in New York. So any criticism the Yankees might have gotten, he's our number 1 guy or number 2 guy. He without Garrett Cole, he's number 1 guy this year coming into camp. But not Freddie Peralta. He's not even guaranteed to be the 5th starter. He's fighting for a spot in the rotation with Eric Lauer. Is that Matt? Did he used to be on NBC, the Good Morning Show? I mean, what is going on? I just disagree with the move. You may agree with it. You guys may think, well, he's 5 years, so what? I mean, whatever. But are you drafting him in fantasy? Are you drafting Freddie Peralta on your fantasy team if you're in a 10 or 12 team league? Answer that one, because if you say you are, I want you to join my fantasy league as well and draft him all day long in my league. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. I told you the other day, sometimes I talk about things because I want to spark conversation. I want to spark the brains. I want you to get to thinking. I want you to tell me why this is not right, why I'm wrong, why I am right, why I am right. It doesn't matter. I just want people in the audience to be thinking about how you're going to manage your drafts. We've talked about doing your own draft board. I've encouraged you in earlier shows this winter to tier your players and have multiple players in each tier. You wipe those dry before you go to your next tier. Pick the players that you like. Pick the players that you value. You know, if I value Matt Olson as much as Freddie Freeman, and I do, but you don't, fine. Draft Freddie Freeman in the first or second round. Draft Matt Olson in the fourth or fifth round. If that's how you have them on your draft board, that's what you should do. But at least give it the thought and give the consideration to the information we're trying to provide you here on Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports, okay? That's all I'm asking. We're almost a week into spring training, and I also want to highlight just a few players that I think have really stood out or at least confirmed their fantasy rankings, and maybe if they have exceeded them. And I know just a 5-game, but I think every week we probably need to take a look at the stars of the week. How about Garrett Cole? He was clocked at 98 miles per hour in his first start on Monday. Struck out 2 batters. Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus. You've got a right to believe. Yankee fans, you do too. Garrett Cole is your ace starting pitcher number 1. Mookie Betts. It almost gave the impression playing in his first game that he was Kirk Gibson reincarnate. That's just the impression and feeling you get with Mookie Betts in the lineup. Yeah, he'll put up better stats than Gibson did 30 years ago. But the iconicness of Mookie Betts is very similar to the iconicness of Gibson. And here's the thing. Gibson came to the Dodgers and they just couldn't get over the hump. In the mid-'80s, they were pretty good. They'd get to the National League Championship Series and Ozzie Smith or Jack Clark or somebody would knock them out. But then they got Kirk Gibson and it was like, now we got a horse we can ride to the finish line. We got a world champion on our team, and the Dodgers have that now. Mookie Betts, world champion on that Dodger team. And so it's not the stats of Mookie Betts so much as it is the vibe of Mookie Betts. Number 3, Joe Adell, the 20-year-old in his first game, got 2 hits, a stolen base, and drove in a run. I told you, he already got another hit yesterday. He's off to a great spring start, and the Angels are going to have some tough decisions to make if they don't bring him up to start the season if he continues to play like this. And 2 pitchers who were all but dead, scrap heaps. Then I'm going to give you a rookie in a minute, okay? Drew Smiley and King Felix. I've talked about King Felix the day after his outstanding 2 scoreless inning start for the Orioles, against the Orioles last weekend. But then there's Drew Smiley. I didn't mention him yet. The giant left-hander, Drew Smiley, remember him? Drew Smiley, former Tiger, former Philly, former Mariner, threw an inning and 2/3 and touched 94 miles per hour for the Tigers this week against the D-backs. If Drew Smiley is healthy and can pitch a full season, I know he's in Detroit. I know the Motor City is not where you want to get pitchers, but it would be if Drew Smiley's healthy all year. I think he could be a fantasy bargain. And so now let's talk about some rookies. Pavin Smith, D-backs, first base outfielder, starts the spring 4 for 5 in his first 2 games. 2 for 2 on Sunday, 2 for 3 on Monday. He was at Double-A last year at the end of the season, had a great second half, likely to open the year for the D-backs at Triple-A, but he is catching some looks. Pavin Smith, he's caught mine. Riley Green, the 19-year-old Tiger outfielder, the number 5 overall pick in last year's amateur draft. He walked twice and homered on Sunday, followed that up with another walk and home run on Tuesday. He's gone 5 straight appearances this spring